For those of them who cannot join the class today, they can watch the video later. See, midterm 791, it only covers chapter 6. And the first few problems will test us how to factor the polynomial if we are able to find a common factor. And we will always find the GCF out. So the problem you see will be factor the polynomial or factor the GCF out. So if we have a problem like this, the first thing we do is to look for the GCF. And how do we look for the GCF? So, okay, equals what? Look for the GCF first. We'll look at each term and start with looking at their coefficients only. 7, 14, 21. We just look at the three numbers. Do they have a common factor? And what is the largest common factor? And that is pretty easy, right? 7, 14, 21, they have a common factor 7. So I started with the number first, then check variable by variable. And I see variable x, then I will check, do they all have x? I see x squared, x here. If all of them have the same variable, and then we'll write down the variable, then use the smallest exponent, 2, 1, 1. Then 1 is smallest, so x is the common part. What else? There is y here, there is y here, there is no y. So y is not a common factor. So 7x is the GCF for all of the three terms. Write down the GCF, then followed by a parenthesis. We put the leftover in the parenthesis. What is left over? The quotient. We divide every term by the GCF. The quotient is called the leftover. So 7, number is gone. X squared, when we take one x out, there is another x left, and y is left. So 7y is left over. Then plus 14 divided by 7, that's 2. X divided by x, x is gone. There is another y here. And last term, I have the plus sign here, 21x divided by 7x, the leftover, the quotient is 3. Okay, so this is the complete factorization. But we factor the GCF out. So for the problem we see here, it asks for find the GCF. So 7x should be the right answer. But on our real test, I will ask you to put this complete expression into the question space there. All right, so this is first one, factor the GCF. Second one, same thing here. So factor the greatest find the greatest common factor to answer this question here. So the C is right answer on the top here. To answer this same thing, how many terms are there? 2. And we start with the coefficient 4, 4. So the GCF should be 4. And the right answer should be C right here. But I do want to do more things on this, but this problem is very special. Okay, it's a good review problem. If we are asked to factor this polynomial right here, 4x squared minus 4, how do we proceed to get the right answer? So always remember my words, every single problem. When we start to do the factoring, we always check the GCF out. So then I will write 4 out here, followed by a parenthesis. And 4x squared divided by 4, I get x squared minus, still minus 4 divided by 4, 1 here. So this step 1, get the GCF out. Then if we are going to do the actual factoring problem, we have to do the complete factorization. Okay, are we done? Not yet, because when we look at what we have in the parentheses, this is a binomial, so alert, binomial. Second alert here, I see the minus. Third alert, both of the two terms are squared. So x squared, there is no question, that is a perfect square. And number one is always can be seen as 1 squared, or maybe 1 to the third power, 1 to the fourth. So this one is also a square term. So in your mind, you can have the square right here. Then we think of the special factorization. I have 4 here, squares minus squares. Then we are going to factor it as add the 2 bases and subtract the 2 bases. This is the complete factorization of this given polynomial. All right, but to answer the question on this practice test, you do not have to finish the entire factorization. They are only asking for the GCF. So the right answer is C right here, 4. The next one is still a GCF problem. So I will proceed to factor this out. 3, 6, 12. The common factor is 3. I have x and all of the terms, so x will be a common factor, and the smallest exponent is this one to the first power. There is 1 here, so 3x is the GCF, so B is right answer. And to finish this factorization, I will have x squared minus 2x, and then plus what? Plus 4. Divide everyone by 3x, double check it, x squared is left, 2x is left, and 4 here. And we are going to, check, are we able to factor this trinomial in the parentheses? The answer is no, this one is prime, so we cannot continue to factor it. We'll stop here. So this is a trinomial. The leading coefficient is 1, but we cannot find 2 numbers. Their product is 4 and the sum is -2. Those 2 numbers do not exist. So this trinomial is prime. We cannot factor it. So the first 3 problems on the test will also be a problem ask us to factor the GCF out, right? So the next topic will be the trinomial. The leading coefficient is 1. So what do we see here? We see x squared minus 2x minus 3. And the problem on the practice test is asking for 1 factor. So some one of them will be 1 factor of the complete factorization. How do we know which one is right? We have to do the factorization by ourselves first. So x squared minus 2x minus 3. What type problem do we have here? Trinomial. And the leading coefficient is 1. So we want to look for 2 numbers. And the 2 numbers, their product, if we multiply them, the product should be -3. If you add them, the sum should be -2. So then you're going to look for what 2 numbers? Their product is -3, their sum is -2. So think of the number right here. You'll see, so 1 times 3, that is 3. And to get negative, one of them should be negative. Then when I add those 2 numbers, the sum should be -2. So apparently, this negative sign should go to the 3 here. So 1 and -3. If we multiply them, we'll get -3. If we add those 2 numbers, the sum should be -2. So I found those 2 numbers. Then those 2 numbers will go into the 2 binomial, which will be the first one, will always be x. So x times x is x squared. So each, both binomial start with the x. Then I put the first number into the binomial. 1 means what? +1 plus 1 times another binomial. Also starts with the x here. The second number is -3, means -3. All done. This is the complete factorization. Now to answer the question here, we'll see which one shows up here. When I go through this, I see what? I see C. X plus 1 shows up here, so C is the right answer. That is question 4. Factor the trinomial. When the leading coefficient, the number before the square term, is 1. We do not see a number, that means the coefficient should be 1. Another problem, same thing here. We want to look for two numbers. Their product is 9 and their sum is 10. So quickly go through all the possibilities in our mind. What two numbers? Their product will be 9. So either be 1 times 9 or 3 times 3, or both of them be negative. But if the sum is positive, the negative sign, the cases should be gone. So just look at the positive numbers. 3 plus 3, that's only 6. So 1 plus 9. So the two numbers is 1 and 9. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 plus 9, that is 10. So just look at those two numbers right here. And those two cases match the two coefficients, two numbers right here. So that means we have found the two numbers, 1 and 9. Then put the two numbers in the two binomials. So x1 means positive 1, and x9 means positive 9 plus 9. Done. This is the complete factorization. And check the answer here. Does either one show up in ABCD right here? Yeah, I see A, x plus 1. So A is right answer. So number 4, 5, that is the second topic. Factor the trinomial when the leading coefficient is 1. The next one will be a little bit harder, and I will see that will be the most challenging factoring problem. When we have a trinomial, the leading coefficient is not 1 anymore, but still, okay, remember my I cannot stress that more. Remember my words here. Whenever we see a problem, and if the first step we always do is what? To check the GCF. So do not see when we have a trinomial like this. Oh, I see. Oh, trinomial leading coefficient is not 1. Then I jump to use the way to look for the 4 numbers. Try to check, are there any GCF? For this one, yeah, the answer is no, because 5, 14, and 3 right here, there is no common factor. So GCF does not exist. Then what we are going to do, we are going to focus on the trinomial. So this trinomial, the leading coefficient is not 1. It asks us to look for the 4 numbers. Those 4 numbers, and so the first 2 numbers, their product should be 5. The last 2 numbers, their product should be -3. Then when I cross multiply, that means FOIL, O times O, inner times inner. And that means cross multiply the 2 numbers and add them up, combine like terms, the sum should be -14. So in my lecture, when I introduce this method here, I showed my way. So there is multiple ways to do the factorization. When you watch the videos on my open math I gave you, you have seen some method here. My method here, I like the way, I like this way. So to look for the first 2 number, 1 times 5, that will give me 5. So 1 times 5 is the only possibility to get 5 here. And then to get a -3, I will definitely get 1 times 3, that's 3. So should I put 1 here, or 3 here, or 3 here, 1 here? I will quickly do some planning. If I put 1 here, 3 here, when I cross multiply, I only get 3 and 5. 3 and 5 can never give me a 14. But if I put 3 here and 1 here, when I cross multiply, 15 and 1, some operation will give me a 14 here. So I will start with this way. And to get a -3, of course, either 3 or 1 should be negative. So don't forget this -3 here. And if I put a negative sign right here, okay, and let me check if this right combination or not. So do the cross multiplication. To do the cross multiplication here, 1 times 3, that is 1. 5 times -3, that's -15. And then I add those two numbers, 1 plus negative 15. What is the sum? 1 plus negative 15, that is negative 14. And this is exactly the coefficient of the middle term. That means, oh, I'm very lucky. I have found those 4 numbers I need to write down the 2 binomials. Okay, so when and only when the cross product sum, add those two, and the sum matches the middle term coefficient, that means you have found the right numbers, the right combination. Then, okay, I'm going to write down the 2 binomials. And remember, horizontally, those 2 numbers go to 1 binomial because this represents the first term, this last term. The first term is always what? So 1 what? Times x. So the first term always is followed by the variable x. 1x is x. You do not have to write the 1 here. And then followed by the second number, negative 3, means minus 3. So 1 and negative 3 go to the first binomial. I do not need to write down the 1 here. And then 5 and 1, so those 2 numbers go to the second binomial. 5 followed by x. 1 means what? Positive 1. Final answer. So the complete factorization for this trinomial is x minus 3 times 5x plus 1. And to answer this multiple choice here, they ask for 1 factor h. So now let's see which answer is correct. I see 5x plus 1, D right here. So this is our final answer. X minus 3 times 5x plus 1. 5x plus 1 shows up here. So D is the right answer. All right, so now let's continue. This is the first problem. For the leading coefficient is not 1. We'll see more. And the next question we see here, what do we have? We have 6, 5, 1. No GCF. Okay, so then we'll just go ahead to look for the 4 numbers. And what the 4 numbers? To get number 6, I either go to 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. And I don't know. Let me start with 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. So let me start from here. So in your mind here, you can also write down. I will check 2 times 3 later. 1 times 6 is 6. To get negative 1, so of course, only 1 times 1, that's 1. And either one should be negative. But which one? I will quickly cross multiply. Check. So 1 times 1 gives 1. 1 times 6 give me 6. So 1 and 6, when they have the right signs, they will get a 5. So 1 and 6, some operation can give me a 5. So I'm pretty happy with my choice here. Then I just need to give the negative sign to either this one or this one. Then look at, because the sum is negative 5, 1 and 6. So when can I get a negative 5? So when 1 is 1, 6 is negative 6, put them together, I will get negative 5. So quickly do all of the screening in the mind here. I can put the negative sign right here because when I do the cross multiplication, 1 times 1, that's 1. 6 times negative 1, that's negative 6. Add those two numbers, 1 plus negative 6. What do I get? Negative 5. It matches the number we have here. Then we do not need to go over that case. So 2 times 3, that combination will never work. So there will be only one combination for the 4 numbers can give us product is the first 2 number, product is 6. The last 2 number, product is negative 1. Then when I cross multiply, total them, the sum should be the negative 5 here. There is only one combination. Once you get it, you don't have to go through the other possibilities. None of them will work. This is the only working one. Then what do we do? Write down the the two binomials. The first two numbers go to the first row, not those two, okay? Be careful. Those two numbers, they represent the first. Those two numbers represent the last. One first and one last go to one binomial. So first one will, so 1x, x. Negative 1 means minus 1. So 1, negative 1 go to the first binomial. 6 and 1 go to the second binomial, like 6 times x plus 1. So this is the complete factorization. Then check the answer right here. One factor, so which one shows up here? This one, x minus 1 shows up right here. So C is the right answer. And this exam, this is the paper exam, also what we used to hold in class. So this is the in class midterm. So right now I have to deliver the midterm online through my Open Math, and there are not multiple choice available in the problem bank. So I cannot give you multiple choice exactly as the practice test, but the fundamental things are the same. We should be able to do the correct factoring, right? Just like this. Okay, so this is the second one, the number 7. Even on the real test, you will also see a factor problem. Trinomial leading coefficient is not 1. Okay, the next one still. So this is, you will have 3 trinomials. Leading coefficient is not 1. So this one, what do we have here? I have 2x squared minus 3x minus 5, no GCF. So always check GCF. And this one has no GCF. Okay, so now we're going to move forward here. Look for the coefficient, not 1. 4 numbers. What 4 numbers? The first 2 numbers, product should be 2. There is no doubt. There is only one case. 1 times 2 is 2. And then to get negative 5, the only possibility is what? 1 times 5 is 5. And so should I put 1 here, 5 here, or 5 here, 1 here? Okay, so the order does matter. And quick thing, if you put the 5 here, cross multiply, you get the number 10. And those two, 1, 1, that's 1, 10 and 1, can never give us a 3. But if I put 1 here, 5 here, before I put the sign, so 1, 5 is 5, 1, 2 is 2. 5 and 2 can give me a 3 some way if I have the right sign here. So, okay, so I just go ahead and try to play with the sign now. And to get a negative 3, I know 5 should be negative. So put the negative sign right here. So 1 times negative 5, that's negative 5. When I cross multiply, 1 times negative 5, negative 5. 1 times 2, that's 2. So negative 5 plus 2, what do we have? That's negative 3. Exactly the coefficient of the middle term. So those 4 numbers are the 4 numbers I'm looking for. And those 2 go to the first binomial. That will be x plus 1. So 1 here, 1 here, 1, 1. 2, negative 5 go to the second binomial. That will be 2 followed by the x. So always, so those 2 numbers represent the first numbers. And the first term is always the x term. So 2x. Negative 5 means minus 5. Done. Final answer. And check the answer right here. And we'll see B. 2x minus 5 shows up here. B is the right answer. Do the factorization. Okay, so before I move on here, and be careful on the test, real test, 791, my Open Math, and the problem I give you will have, some problem like this. So you might be given, so 6x squared minus 9x minus 15. So that might be a typical problem I gave you on the test. What do we have? So you say, oh, that is a trinomial. And the leading coefficient is not 1. So I know I should look for the 4 numbers. The first 2 numbers, product is 6. And the last two numbers, product is -15. No, that's not the right way. Why? Because you missed the first step, GCF. Okay, so I cannot stress more. Please remember, before you do anything else, always check the GCF first. 6, 9, 15, do they have anything in common? The answer is yes. All of the three are multiple of 3. So I should get the GCF is 3. So factor 3 out and then put the leftover in the parentheses. 6 divided by 3, that's 2. I get 2x squared. And 9 divided by 3, that's 3. So minus 3x. And 15 divided by 3, that's 5. So minus 5. So factor the GCF out first. Then we'll look at the leftover and the parentheses. Are we able to continue to factor this? The answer is yes, because we just did here. So then we just use what we just did here, and the final answer should be what? 3 times x plus 1 times 2x minus 5. Okay, this will be a pretty typical problem I gave you on the real test on my open math. So don't forget GCF. Always check the GCF first. Okay, and so these the first 8 problems. And the next one is also a trinomial, but they're special polynomials. If you could remember, so what do we see here? You see m squared plus 8m plus 16. And I asked you try to memorize all the commonly seen perfect square number: 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, and so on. Okay, so those are the perfect square numbers. When you see some perfect square numbers in the polynomial, and you should think of the special factorization. See, the first term is m squared. The third term is 16. 16 is, so 8m plus 4 squared. 16 is 4 squared. When I multiply the basis for the first and the last one, so this m, this is 4. 4 times m is 4m. And multiply the two bases and then double the product, I will get the 8m here. So 8m is 2 times 4 times m. So this turns into a special polynomial. It is called a perfect square of a binomial. And it is exactly equal to what? Put the first base and the second base 4 and put the square outside. So if you could recognize a special polynomial, first term is a perfect square. Third term is also a perfect squares. And the middle term is 2 times the product of the bases of the first and the third. So m4, 4m, 2 times 2. That's 8m here. Then you just write down this factorization as a perfect square. First base and then plus the second base. Second base is coming from the third term here. And then parentheses squared. So this is a special way. And if you cannot memorize this special case here, you can always treat this as a regular trinomial. So a regular trinomial, leading coefficient is what? Is 1. And then I need to look for 2 numbers. Product is 16, sum is 8. What are the 2 numbers? 4 and 4. So 4 times 4 is 16. 4 plus 4, that's 8. And then you can just write down this x plus 4 times x plus 4. And x plus 4 times x plus 4 and not x, m. Okay, and you can write this as m plus 4 squared because they are the same, repeating multiplication. So either way, so when you see some special trinomial, and if you recognize that's special, go ahead, use the formula. If you cannot, do not worry. We can always use the method we learned before. Treat this as a regular trinomial. Leading coefficient is 1. Okay, you can still get the right answer. And the next example is the same thing here. And because I have practiced so much, and I will be able to recognize 16, that is 8 squared. So 8 and p, I get 8p. When I multiply 8p, I get 16p here. So that will be the double the 2 term here. And because this minus here and those two binomial, or when I write down this as a perfect square, the base should be p is p here. If this the middle term is minus, then the binomial will be minus in the middle as well. Then grab the second base, 8 right here. So p minus 8 squared down. So one factor is p minus 8. And this one, that's cm plus 4. Okay, so this is, I was able to recognize this special factorization. Okay, and be prepared. On the exam, I might give you a little bit more complicated case. For example, like this, I might give you 4x squared, okay, minus 12x plus 9. All right, so what I have here, I have a trinomial. And do they have a GCF? No, there is no GCF. Okay, so one way you look at this will be the way I just did before. We also, if this is the trinomial, no GCF, the leading coefficient is not 1, then we should look for the 4 numbers, get the right combination, then you can get the factored form here. Or when I see this, I recognize the first term and third term are both something squared. See, first one, 4x squared, can be seen as what? 2x, parentheses squared. And the third term, 9, of course, we know that it's 3 squared. So the first and third, they're both perfect square term. Then I just look at the base. The base is 3, and 2x. When you multiply 3 and 2x, so 3 times 2x, what do we get? We get 6x. When you double the 6x, so 6x times 2, what do we get? 12x. That's exactly what we have in the middle. So now I can recognize this is actually a perfect square of a binomial. And the first term will be the first base, 2x. And the second term will be the second base, 3 here. What is in the middle? It is determined by the middle term right here, because this is minus as well. And then don't forget, we have a square outside. I was able to recognize this is a special trinomial. It happens to be a perfect square of binomial. Okay, so see, you can speed up things up. You do not have to look for the 4 numbers. Do I go for 1, 4 or 2, 2? So there are 2 possibilities to get 9 here. I get 1, 9 or 3, 3. And which combination will give me negative 12? I have to go through a lot of testing and the trial and test. But if I'm able to recognize squared, and product of the 2 times of their product of the 2 bases, I can write down this factorization form directly. Speed up a little bit. All right, so this is something you might see on the test. Okay, and another special factorization, binomial. So if we have a binomial and there is no GCF, the binomial can be factored only at our level right here. Okay, in this class, it can only be factored when it is something squared minus another squared. If whenever you see this binomial you see a plus sign between the 2 terms, it can never be factored. That is the prime binomial. Okay, in this class. And there is a special case. I do not, this textbook does not introduce that special case, the cube plus cube or cube minus cube. This is beyond our, the knowledge for at current level. Forget about that case. And when you see a binomial, always check the GCF. If there is no GCF, it can only be factored as squared minus squared, as we see right here. 4 is what? So it turns into 2 squared, that's 4. Minus, always a minus here, n squared. So squared minus squared. What do? We are going to write down this, add the two bases. So plus 2 plus n, and then subtract the two bases, 2 minus n. Follow the order. First one, still first. Second one, still the second when we do the subtraction here. So first base plus second base times first base minus second base. So it got to be the base. You cannot put the 4 here. Okay, so because 4 is 2 squared. And this is, so we call this what? Difference of squares. Squares minus squares. That is called the difference of squares. Can be factored as sum times difference. Sum of the two bases times difference of the two bases. And the right answer is C right here. We see 2 minus n. Number 11, special case. Number 12, same thing here. So this one is there is only one variable, one number, one variable. Sometimes we see two variables. See m squared minus n squared. As long as this is something squared minus squared, how do we factor this? So m squared minus n squared. And we'll always do this. Add the two bases, m plus n, times difference of two bases, m minus n. Okay, and one of the answer right here, that's A. And the special case is this. And on the exam, I might give you a little bit more challenging problem, not this simple, like this, like 25x to the 4th minus y squared. So what I have here, I have a binomial. And those two binomials, the two terms in the binomials, the first one, do they have GCF? Nothing in common, no GCF. And then check, this minus sign here. Then I will try to write in the first term a perfect square. So 25x to the 4th. Can I rewrite it as a perfect square? There is no doubt 25 is 5 squared. Then when I see x to the 4th, when the power of one variable is an even number. So even number is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. They are all perfect square term. So we are going to rewrite this x to the 4th as x squared. So divide the exponent by 2. 4 divided by 2, that's 2. And then raise a power to the 2. So that's the backward of the power rule that we learned in Algebra 1. Raise a power to a power. Keep the base, multiply the two exponent. 2 times 2, that's 4. So the first term can be rewritten as 5x squared, parenthesis squared. Then minus what? Minus y squared. So again, this is something squared minus another thing squared. How do we factor 8? Just add the two bases. What the base? 5x squared. So anything besides the square, that is the base. So everything inside the parentheses, that's the base. So first base plus the second base. And multiply the first base, subtract the second base. Final answer. So be prepared. On the exam, you might see some problem like this. And again, don't forget this one. So x to the 4th means x squared. And x to the 6th equals x to the 3rd squared, and so on. So some special square term. I hope, okay, this can give you some impression. We'll see some similar problem on the test. You don't mess things up. What do we do next after we learned? Okay, after we worked on the factoring problem, we move on to solving quadratic equation problem. So we're asked, solve for x, given a quadratic equation. And so just elect, so don't look at the question right here. So if we are going to solve this equation, what do we do? Okay, step one, rewrite the equation in the standard form, which means I want C0 on the right of the equal sign. So I have 42, do not see 0 here. What do? Move 42 to the left. So if the right side of the equation is not 0, we have to turn this into 0. How? By subtract 42 on both sides, or we see move 42 to the other side. Then we'll get the equation as x squared minus x, then minus 42 equals what? Equals 0. So to solve a quadratic equation, the first step is always what? Make sure we have 0 on the right. And then we are going to use what we just did here, factor the left side. Trinomial, leading coefficient is 1. Then we only need two numbers. Product is negative 42, sum is negative 1. What are the two numbers? 6 and 7. And 7 should be negative, so x minus 7 and x plus 6. So this is the factored form of the left side of the equation. So then that one equals what? Equals 0. We have a product equals 0. What do? Let each factor be 0. So don't stop here. And many students say, oh, now I know. The two answers should be negative 7 and 6. Completely wrong, because we should let x minus 7 equals 0, or x plus 6 equals 0. So either one be 0. When we have x minus 7 be 0, what x should be? X should be positive 7. X plus 6 equals 0, what x should be? X should be negative 6. So 7 and negative 6 are the two solutions. Okay, so this basically what you will do on the test. And okay, so give me a second, please. Hello? What? Oh, 不需要，我要上课呢，我在上课，bye. Okay, sorry. Go back here. So those are the two solutions. So you, the test, you just plug those two numbers into the space and you're all set. And on the practice test, they ask for the sum of the solutions. So which means we have to add the two numbers here. 7 plus negative 6, what do we have? Positive 1. So B is the right answer. And this is only for the practice test. And on our real test, I do not ask you to add the two solutions. You only need to give me the two solutions. That's all. Okay. And same thing here. The next problem, quickly check. What kind of equation do we have? Do we have the standard form? Yes, 0. And then check the left side. So if we have something equals 0, we should start to factor the left side. How do we factor this? X squared minus x. Always check the GCF first. And x is the common factor. And factor x out, I get x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so when we get here, some students might get confused. As you told me before, after I did the factorizing, I will let each factor be 0. And how do I proceed? I only see x minus 1. And what do I do with x? X is also a factor here. So something times something else. So when we have this here, we just either let the first factor be 0. So x might be 0. Or x minus 1 be 0. So those two are both factors. Even this x stays by itself, that is one factor. So x might be 0 or x minus 1 be 0. To write those two down, then we'll continue to solve for x. Do we have to solve for x for this one? We don't, because we know x already. But for the second case, we have to continue to solve for x. Plus 1 on both sides. Here we get x equals positive 1. Okay, so this equation here has two solutions. 0 is still one solution. 1 is another solution. So sum of the two solutions is what? 0 plus 1, that's 1. B is right answer. Okay, don't forget this x is still one factor. X equals 0 is still one solution. And continues, the thing right here is the same thing. And so I just quickly go through here to this one, standard form already, factor the left side, and I factor this what as x plus 3 times x plus 6, because 3 times 6, 18. 3 plus 6, that's 9, equals 0. And then either that this one be 0 or that one be 0. So x plus 3 equals 0. What is x? X equals negative 3. X plus 6 equals 0. What is x? X equals negative 6. Negative 3 plus negative 6, the right answer is negative 9 for this problem. All right, and continue right here, same thing. What we have a quadratic equation, but it is not a standard form. What do? Rewrite it as x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. When we move a number to the left side, we change the sign. Minus 6 equals 0. Then factor this. That is a pretty easy factorization here. I get x plus 3 times x minus 2, because 2, 3, that's 6. 3 plus negative 2, that's 1. Equals what? Equals 0. So don't be lazy and do not stop right here and continue. So x plus 3 equals 0. What do we get? We get x equals negative 3. And x minus 2 equals 0. What do we get? We get x equals positive 2. Okay, the negative 3 plus 2, what do we get? Negative 1, final answer. And those, so from problem 13 to number 16. So those 4 problems will test us how to, given the quadratic equation, it could be a standard form already, like this. It could be a non-standard form. Then we have to rewrite them as standard form, then solve the equations. So equations are given, and then we are going to solve the equation. Then the next problem we'll see will be no equations are given to us directly. We see a word problem. We have to write down the equations by ourselves, like this one. So read the problem carefully. The height of a triangle is twice the base. Okay, this period here. Some information is given. So we know it's a triangle. We have base, we have the height. Height is twice the base. And if the area is 36 meters squared, find the height. So for any problem like this, if you are given a rectangle, or you are given a triangle, or you are given a right triangle, what do I do first? Draw the sketch. So you see the height is twice the base. So that will be a triangle like this. Do we know the shape? We don't actually know. And this is the height, that is the base. Okay, and then we know the area is 36. So before we start here, we have to assign a letter, an unknown, to one side here. So we see height is twice the base. So let the base be x. So from here to here, I let the base be the x. And because the height is twice the base, what's the height? Height will be 2x. So this is what I choose. I let x be the base, so the height should be 2x. Then to find out area of any triangle, area of a triangle, And we learned this in pre-algebra. A equals what equals 1/2 times base times height. So this is a like something we should have known. Okay, so the problem didn't give us this. This is a property of the triangle. Area of triangle is always 1/2 times base times height. And then now we go back here. Do we know the area? 36. Do we know the base? X. Do we know the height? 2x. Plug them into the formula right here. So I get 1/2 times base times height equals 36. Okay, so that will be the equation we have here. Then what do we do? Simplify. 1/2 times 2, that's 1, cancel out. X times x, x squared. So I get x squared equals 36. Then we are going to go ahead to solve this equation. So x squared equals 36. What is x? And do not, in the class here, I have told you here, do not, oh, I know 6 squared equals 36. I get x equals 6. Don't do that. Follow the general rule. To solve any quadratic equation, what do we do first? Turn this into a standard form. I get x squared minus 36 equals 0. I want to see 0 first. Then factor the left side. When we factor squared minus squared, 36 is 6 squared. Then we can get, add the two bases, subtract the two bases, equal 0. To solve this quadratic equation, we'll have those two binomial. Then either one be 0, so this one be 0 or the other one be 0. What do we get? We get x equals -6 or +6. The two solutions. Those two solutions are the solution to that equation. Then we go back to the real problem. X represents the base, the length of the base. The length can never be a negative number. So then we just neglect this negative, cross the -6 out. So we'll see the base equals 6 meters. All right, so the base cannot be a -6 meters. Then we go back to the problem, check what we are asked to do, find the height. Okay, are we done? Not yet, because the height equals 2 times the base. 2 times 6 meters. That should be 12 meters. And then that will be the answer we are looking for. The height is 12 meters, and C is the right answer. All right, so for this, what do we get from this example? For this practice problem, for any word problem, if it is about a figure or triangle, draw a sketch first, then recall the formula. To calculate the area of a triangle, we always have 1/2 times base times height. And when we assign a variable to the problem right here, we pick the variable. So I pick the base to be the variable, to be the unknown here. And after solve the question here, always check what is the original question in the problem. It asks for the height, not the base. Then I will continue to get what the height is. This is the first word problem. And another one right here is like this. So it's a word problem. Okay, it's a number problem. If you subtract 4 times a number from its square, the result is 12, period here. Find all the numbers here. So subtract 4 times. So what is this number? We let this number be x. Then do the translation. So subtract 4 times a number. So let this number be x. What is 4 times number? 4x. From its square. What is its square? X squared. So subtract 4x from x squared. I will get x squared minus 4x. That means subtract 4x from x squared. And the result is means equals 12. Okay, see, after we read the problem, translate from the English phrase into the algebraic expression. What do I get? I get a quadratic equation now. What do I do next? I will solve it by moving that 12 to the left side. I get x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. So it's not a standard form. Turn this into a standard form. Then try to factor the left side, no GCF. What do we get? Two numbers, x minus 6, x plus 2 equals 0. Then what I get? So x minus 6 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. Then I get x equals 6 or x equals negative 2. So 6 and negative 2 are the two numbers. And check the answer right here. D is the right answer. Those are the two word problem. And on our real exam, I want reminder. So we might see a problem about a right triangle. So remember what? When we have a right triangle, we have A and B are the two legs. C is the hypotenuse. Never forget the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So this is the first thing we should know about a right triangle. Another thing here, for a right triangle, how do we calculate its area? And for the right triangle, we can always treat the two legs. Can be one is the base, the other one is the height. So A is the base, so B is the height. The area of a right triangle is always equal to what? 1/2 A times B. 1/2 of the product of the two legs. The legs are the two sides adjacent to the right angle. And the longest side, which is opposite to the right angle, is called hypotenuse. Okay, so those are two things we should know about the right triangle. And another thing, if we are given a rectangle here, what the rectangle? So we have the length is the L, the width is W. So there's the longer side we call the length. The shorter side is the width. And for a rectangle, the rectangle has 4 right corners. Okay, and the area of a right triangle equals length times width. So this quick review, just in case on the real problem, on the real exam, we might see a problem about those special figures. Don't forget those formulas we have learned before. And so this is some word problem you might see on the test. The last two problems on the test is still solve the quadratic equation. But those quadratic equation, after we rewrite this as a standard form, the left side is a special polynomial. So a squared minus 64 equals 0. What do? Factor the left side. We got a plus 8 times a minus 8 equals 0. Then the solution will be what? A plus 8 equals 0, get a equals negative 8 or a equals 8. So there will be two solutions, 8 and negative 8. B is right answer. Last one, turn this into a standard form. X squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0. Polynomial. And the left side, I am able to recognize this is x minus 5 squared equals 0. Okay, so when something squared equals 0, the base might be 0. So x minus 5 equals 0. What's the solution? X equals 5 only. So this equation happens to have just one solution. And or you can see it has two same solutions. The two same solutions turns into one solution. And B is right answer. And so when you prepare for the exam, if you want to redo all those problems, download a copy of this practice problem, practice exam from Blackboard, and you'll see the answer key at the end of the practice test here, you can go over, redo the problem by yourself. That will be a pretty good preparation for 791. So right now, so we are done with chapter 6, and we will be taking our first midterm 791. And of course, before you take the 791 here, you have to finish all the assignment from 6.1 to 6.5, and also do the two quizzes, 206A and 206B. So do all of those first, then take the midterm 791. If you see, Professor, I passed the due date for some of the old assignments already, or I missed the due date for the first quiz already, what should I do? I will grant you a late pass. You just go ahead, do this on the practice mode. So when you see after we pass the due date, the assignment or the quiz will turn into a practice mode. Do not worry about that. Just continue to work the quizzes or assignment under the practice mode. After you're done, you will still get a grade there. You'll see you get 11 out of 11 correct, or 10 out of 11. Screenshot your grade and email that to me. I will overwrite the grade in my grade book. You'll see I will manually overwrite the grade. I will not change the due date. Okay, and everyone has one late pass. Okay, for each of the homework. For every homework, you have one late pass. All right, and then I can just email me your screenshot of the grade, and I will overwrite the grade for you. So this is something I want to remind. And please catch up. If you're behind, you're not done with all of the 5 sections and the 2 quizzes here, you're kind of behind now, please speed up and just spend a little bit more time in this class. If you need help, I am available. We have tutors available, and please, and try to catch up as soon as possible. And things will be a little bit more complicated in the coming chapters. Chapter 7, Chapter 8, they're all based on what we learned in Chapter 6. This is the foundation for the coming chapters. I hope everyone can catch up, and then we'll move forward at the same time. Okay, so that is the review class for today, and I will stop share here. Any questions before